Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I just want to apologise firstly if my voice sounds weird, I have a cold. But that aside, in today's video I want to share with you 10 plants that I think are great for beginners and low-tech aquariums. So these are plants that I've grown in the past and had success with in low light and low CO2 conditions. I've been aquascaping for about 3 years, so I know that doesn't really put me in a position to be like, I know it all, and I'm certainly not claiming to know it all. These are just things that I learned during these 3 years, and I feel like because I did what a lot of people do when they get into the hobby, I got 10 tanks within the first year, so I made a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes, and I learned a lot of things the hard way. So I maybe learned more than sort of like the average person who is normal and just has one tank in the first year. So I've had quite a lot of aquascapes in that time, all that have had very unique issues and problems, and I've grown quite a lot of different types of plants, certainly in the easy to medium categories. Advanced I still kind of stay away from. So yeah, that's kind of where this is coming from, and I'm sure that there'll be people who disagree with some of the ones that I suggest, and that is totally fine. Like I say, I'm not claiming to be a professional or know it all. This is just my experience that I want to share with you, and hopefully, you know, if one person gets something from this, then that's all I could ask for, because I guess I consume a lot of YouTube videos, trying to, you know, take in other people's experiences and learn from other people. You know, there's people like Serpa Design, who is my absolute favourite YouTuber, or MJ Aquascapes, or whoever. Like, I learn a lot from them, and a lot from their experiences, and it's something that I'm like grateful and thankful for, that they put the time and effort in to create these videos, and we can learn from them. So I guess that's just what I want to do essentially. If I can just, you know, give something back after how much I've like taken, then that's what this is. So yeah, I guess one more thing before we jump into it. So this video is kind of, it's more than just 10 easy plants. The point of it, or at least what I'm trying to do, is the 10 plants that I've selected in this video, or for this video, they actually all have their own like purpose. So there'll be something for the mid-ground, foreground, background, carpet, epiphyte, that kind of thing. So the whole point is that if somebody wanted to, they could take this entire plant list and plant a tank with it, and it would actually look good, and all the plants would complement each other. At least I hope it would look good. And all the plants would, you know, complement each other, and there's a purpose for each plant, there's a point to it. Or equally, you could just take away 3 plants from this, or 2 plants, or whatever, and that's fine. But it is just to give a full comprehensive list of plants, because that was one of the things I struggled with in the beginning, was, you know, knowing what plants to get, what's going to work well with each other, you know, what is the purpose of this plant, sort of thing. So yeah, that's a preface of this video, so let's jump into it. Okay, so the first plant, and this is probably one of the world's most widely used aquatic plants, and that is a Java fern. Most people will have heard of it, perhaps most people have used it, and obviously if you're a beginner and you haven't, I would definitely recommend this plant. So Java fern will tolerate most lighting conditions. It'll also tolerate most water conditions, whether we're talking soft acidic water or hard alkalinic, or even, is alkalinic a word? Alkaline water to brackish conditions. And it also tolerates quite high temperatures. You'll quite often see people use these in planted discus tanks. Now, I've never kept discus, but I believe that they're kind of kept in the 30s, if not higher. And they will still grow in there. So that's why I recommend this, because it is extremely hardy. The one thing to kind of watch out for with Java fern is it's a slow growing plant. So what can quite often be seen is that they can face some algae issues, and you'll quite often see algae attach itself to the edge of the leaves. Now, they can just be trimmed off. You can just trim it right down at the base and discard the kind of infected leaf. And interestingly, with Java fern, if they start to die, they will just produce little plantlets on the tips of the leaves. So if you ever see like stems or plants that send out runners, they're just sending out extensions of the plant, whereas a Java fern literally creates a whole new plantlet. So in the wild, when they're sort of reproducing, it'll just grow a new plantlet on the end of its, like the tip of its leaf, and when it gets heavy enough, that'd just drop off and root where it landed and start growing again. So it's quite cool to watch them reproduce, or at least cool if you're a nerd like me. Yeah, they're probably more interesting to see than like a stem plant. So they're really quite easy to propagate as well. So you can end up with quite a lot of Java ferns. So there we go. That is plant 1 on the list, a Java fern. So next up is another favourite among aquascapers, and that is Anubias. So I think I've selected Anubias barteri. Excuse my pronunciations of these plant names, I'm not very good at it. But most Anubias species in general will do well in a low tech or low energy setup. They're quite similar to Java ferns in their requirements, so they will tolerate a low to medium light. They also have quite thick, rugged leaves, so it makes them quite good for putting them in tanks with perhaps more boisterous fish like cichlids or goldfish and things like that. And the thing with Anubias to look out for is just be careful not to fully plant the rhizome, because it can cause them to rot. But other than that, there's a lot of species of Anubias. They're an epiphyte plant, so they're just easy to attach to any rock or hardscape. And there again can be some algae problems just because they are slow growing, but providing that they're healthy, you shouldn't have any issues. Next up is a moss. Now I have a love-hate relationship with moss because I really like how it looks. I love what it adds to the tank. It adds this like aged look, a really mature look, but I hate trimming moss. It's quite messy. But the species that I have selected is Java moss, so it's probably the most hardy, most versatile moss. It's incredibly easy to grow due to its low demands, almost non-existent demands. I think this moss would probably grow in pitch black. Moss doesn't necessarily root, it kind of sticks itself, like imagine how ivy does. So you can tie it, glue it, wedge it, and it will eventually just anchor itself. Another thing with moss as well, especially if you want to keep shrimp, it provides like great hiding places for shrimp or babyfish fry. And it also like can provide them with food, because you'll see that moss kind of collects. It seems to be a magnet for sort of detritus, and also it grows like little biofilms on it and things like that. So it is really good, especially in a shrimp tank or any kind of breeding tanks. But yeah, if you keep on top of trimming it, it should keep a sort of compact growth, but it can get away from you. It is relatively quick growing. So yeah, there we go, moss. Next up is our first stem of the list. So this is Bacopa caroliniana. I can't believe I just said that right. I find it like a tongue twister to say that one. I'll probably say it wrong at some point. So this is a really beautiful stem plant, and it retains a really bright, vibrant green hue to it, and it will grow in pretty low lighting, and it doesn't grow as quick as other stems. It's a stem plant, so it's quick in comparison to non-stem plants, but it's kind of the slower type. It's a great plant for beginners. It's quite ornamental, it looks quite nice planted in groups. So yeah, I actually have a newfound love for this plant. I've used it in one of my aquariums recently, and because it has got that really healthy, vibrant green colour to it that really pops, I just think it's a nice addition to an aquarium. And yeah, the plant that I'm going to recommend after that, I actually think complements this plant really well. So the next plant is one of the few red plants that you'll find does grow in low energy setups. So it's Ludwigia palustris super red. In a low light setup, it won't be as vibrant red than say if you had it in an aquarium. With high light and with CO2, it is kind of a given that they provide the more optimal conditions. But it will still certainly change. It won't be, you know, it'll have a different colour to it than the rest of the greens in your tank, so it provides something else. It's an extra dynamic and it can just break up like all the green stems. So it's a fast grower, so you do have to keep on top of trimming it, but because it is a fast grower, it's probably a good plant for helping take up excess nutrients in the water column. But yeah, I think that Ludwigia palustris paired with Bacopa caroliniana look really nice together, just in my opinion. Like the leaf shape and the colour really complement each other well, and I'll overlay some footage of it in my tank. The first time that I actually did that combo was when I was at Tropica and did the Tropica Live, and when I saw how it grew in, I was like, I'm going to do that in my tank. So yeah. So next up is a crypt, and it's Cryptocoryne, however you say it. Cryptocoryne willisii, or willisii, I don't know, who knows. But crypts are quite slow growing-ish, and the reason I've picked willisii is because it is kind of a medium-sized crypt, so I think it makes quite a good transitional plant. I'm not going to specifically say where these plants should be placed within the aquarium, because that depends on the size of your aquarium. So I'll quite often use, you know, mid-ground plants as a background plant in a small aquascape. So you can kind of use them wherever you like, or wherever you feel looks good. But yeah, I think this makes either a nice background plant in a small tank, or at least a transitional plant in a slightly bigger tank. So Crypt willisii is one of the greener looking crypts, because you can get them in an array of shades, and I think it's a roseate plant, so it kind of grows out from a point, and I think eventually they do send out like runners, but it takes quite a while to like grow another plantlet. But yeah, just an easy plant all round. The only thing to be aware with crypts is that when you first put them in your aquarium, it is common for them to melt. Don't worry about it, just chop the leaves off. As long as the actual root system and some of the stems are still intact, it will grow back. It's slow, but be patient and it'll happen. Next on the list is a grassy plant, which is Eleocharis acicularis. So it's like a slightly bigger version of a dwarf haired grass. Again, it makes a really nice transitional plant, or even a background plant if you want to. And it looks really great in, or at least I think it looks great in, like stream style, riverbed style aquascapes. It's got that really, really natural feel to it, and in the floor when it's swaying, it looks really nice. Next up is a carpeting plant. So a lot of people probably assume that you'd struggle to grow a carpet without CO2 or without highlighting. Marsilea hirsuta can be grown in low energy environments, but patience is key with this one. It does take a while, but it certainly can be done. The only thing you might find is it does grow a little bit taller and less compact in low energy environments. But yeah, if you give it time, you can eventually grow a carpet, and it's quite a nice carpet because the plant itself is like a little clover. So yeah, it's a waiting game with that one, but it can be done. You might not want a plant foreground, you might want sand, that's also cool. Next up is one of my probably favourites, and that's Staurogyne repens. Again, just a really nice vibrant green plant, and when it's in, you know, healthy condition, it really pops. Again, looks nice planted in little groups, makes a really good transitional plant. You could technically grow a carpet with Staurogyne repens. If you kept it trimmed really short, it would kind of stay low. But yeah, it's sort of like a medium grower, and again, quite an easy plant, I would say, to grow in for beginners and in low energy setups. Lastly on the list is a floating plant. So I use this plant no matter what type of aquarium I'm setting up, whether it's high tech or low tech. I use this plant because it is brilliant at taking up excess nutrients, which is key, especially in the early days of setting up a new aquascape. So the plant is Amazon frogbit. With it being a floating plant and having access to the CO2 in the air, it does grow pretty fast, but you can it also grows roots like down into the water, and they will look for the soil essentially, and they will start to root in there. So what you can do is just trim them. But yeah, it's a really handy plant to have. It does look nice as well, but it is quite a brute. Like, it grows fast and it will just overtake the surface of your water and eventually block out the light. So if you're already on low light as it is, I would maybe just take some out just to ensure that your plants below it are getting some light. So yeah, that's it. That's my 10 plants that I recommend. So just to kind of recap, I don't know if I'm going to do this in the order that I've just said them in because I can't remember the order I've done, but we've got Java fern, Anubias, Bacopa caroliniana, Ludwigia palustris, Cryptocoryne willisii, Eleocharis acicularis, Marsilea hirsuta, Staurogyne repens, Amazon frogbit, and I can't remember if I said Java moss or not, so maybe Java moss again. But yeah, that's all the plants, so I really hope that you've got something from this. If you have any questions about them, please leave it in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. And if anyone does plant a tank up with these plants, send me a picture because I'd actually really love to see it. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one. If you've watched to the end, thank you so much. It really means the most, and thanks for bearing with me when I've got a cold and I feel like poo. So I feel like this video probably wasn't my best, so I apologise. But I really wanted to do it. The dedication. So yeah, thank you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye. Eleocharis acicularis. God, who names these plants? Just name them normal names. Next up is Eleocharis. Eleocharis. Right, no, can't do this one. I'm gonna change the plant. Eleocharis acicularis. You get, yeah.